Imagine you're somewhere in your 50s, maybe a little past 60. One evening, you log into your brokerage account. You stare at the numbers sitting there, and your stomach just drops because it's not enough. It's not even close. And right on cue, a thought pops up. And in that moment, it feels like pure common sense. I don't have time to slowly crawl my way there anymore. I need a big win. QQQ, tech, crypto, something that actually moves the needle fast. I get it. I really do. When you feel like you're falling behind, slamming your foot on the gas pedal feels like the only option you've got left. But then I actually sat down and ran the real historical numbers, and what I found stopped me cold. The most aggressive fund in this entire test did not win, and the boring safe fund that most people look down on wasn't the loser you'd bet money against. There was actually one tiny change. Not the fund you picked, not the amount of money, just the exact year you happened to start. That completely flipped the script. Same fund, same strategy, opposite results. One person retired rich, the other got wiped out. So if you're a late saver trying to figure out how aggressive you need to be right now, give me the next 20 minutes. Because getting this wrong at this stage of your life is not the kind of mistake you get a second chance to fix. Let's look at what the math actually says. Section 1. Why it feels so right. First, let's be fair to that instinct. The go aggressive voice in your head isn't stupid, it's just half a thought. Picture a 25-year-old. The market crashes, their account gets cut in half. And so what? They've got 40 years of paychecks still coming. Time does the heavy lifting for them. They can sleep through a crash and wake up richer 10 years later. Now picture yourself. Same crash, same 50% gone. Except retirement isn't some far-off idea anymore. It's right there on the horizon. So the math feels obvious, doesn't it? Less time means I need bigger returns, which means I need bigger risk. And that's exactly where the trap is hiding. That logic treats risk like a gas pedal, like pushing harder just gets you there faster. But the market isn't a highway, it's a poker table. And betting harder at a poker table doesn't get you home sooner. It just means every bad hand costs you more. And at 55 or 60, you don't have the chips left to keep buying back in. That's the real gap between a young investor and a late saver. Same risk, same crash, completely different consequences. So the question was never, should I be aggressive? The real one is, how big a loss can I actually survive at this exact point in my life without it ending the whole plan? Hold on to that question. Everything I'm about to show you comes back to it. So here's what I did. I took the 4 ETFs that late savers fight about in every single comment section, the exact 4, and I ran real money through all of them. The results genuinely surprised me. Let me introduce the contestants. Section 2. The 4 funds. Think of it as a dial, 4 positions on it. All the way to the right, red hot, that's QQQ, the NASDAQ 100. 100 of the biggest, fastest-growing companies on the planet, stacked heavy with tech. This is the rocket. One notch back is SPMO, a momentum fund. Think of it as the rocket, but with a steering wheel. I'm holding SPMO for later because what it did in the worst year of this whole test is the single most interesting thing I found. In the middle, calm and steady, VOO, the S&P 500, 500 of America's biggest companies. Or its near twin, VTI, the total market fund. This is the cruise liner. Nothing flashy about it, but it's carried more people into retirement than anything else in history. And on the cool end, SCHD, a dividend fund. Picture a lifeboat that actually pays you to sit in it. Slower growth, but it hands you real cash every quarter, and it doesn't flip over when the water gets rough. 4 funds, 1 dial. From swing for the fences all the way down to protect what I've already built. Now let's do the obvious thing first, the thing that voice in your head is begging you to do. Let's just look at the last 9 years. Drop $100,000 into each one back in 2017 and walk away. By the end, QQQ turns that into roughly $550,000. VOO brings it to around $350,000. SCHD lands at about $255,000. Look at that gap. The most aggressive fund made almost $300,000 more than the safe one.
Same 9 years, same starting 100 grand. So that settles it, right? Go aggressive, buy QQQ, close the app. If I ended the video right here, that's exactly what you do. And it might be the most expensive decision of your entire retirement, because that 9-year number is hiding something. And what it's hiding is the whole reason this video exists. Section 3. The one tiny change that flips everything. Here's how your brain just got played. Those 9 years I showed you, they sat inside one of the greatest tech bull runs in history. No depression, no lost decade, no real disaster. The rocket flew because the weather happened to be perfect the entire way up. So let me change one thing, just one. Not the fund, not the amount, not the strategy, just the year you started. Instead of 2017, what if you'd put that same money into QQQ in the year 2000? In 2000, the dot-com bubble burst, and QQQ didn't dip. It didn't correct. It fell roughly 80%. Picture what that does to a real account. $100,000 becomes about $19,000. Your money didn't shrink, it got deleted. And it took more than 14 years just to crawl back to where it started. Now make it yours. Say it's early 2000 and you're 55. You feel behind, so you go all in on the rocket. The crash hits. You watch 4/5 of your savings vanish. And you don't break even, not a dollar of profit, just back to square one until you're 69 years old. And if you'd gone all in at 60, you'd be staring at your mid-70s before you even got your original money back. Your whole retirement window, not damaged, gone. Not because of a scam, not because you picked some fake fund, because of timing. The exact same fund that built a fortune starting in 2017 destroyed a retirement starting in 2000. One number different. And underneath all of it is a piece of math almost nobody truly feels in their gut. Losses and gains don't cancel out evenly. Lose 50% and you don't need 50% back. You need 100 just to break even. Lose 80% like QQQ did. You need 400%, 5 times your money just to climb back to where you started. So picture a crater. A 25-year-old can sit at the bottom of that crater for 10 years, keep tossing paychecks in, and slowly climb out. A 57-year-old with not much saved can't. They don't have the years, and they don't have the income to keep shoveling. This even has a name: sequence risk. The danger of a giant crash landing at the worst possible moment, right when you're closest to needing the money. For a young investor, a crash is a sale. For a late saver, that same crash can be the end of the story. So if going all aggressive can blow up a retirement, then the safe play wins, right? Hide in cash, guard every dollar. No, because that's the other half of the mistake, and it kills you just as quietly. This is the part almost nobody warns you about. Most late savers who get scared do the exact same thing. They slam the brakes too hard, and it ruins them just as surely, only slower. Let me show you how.
Section 4. Too safe is also a mistake. When the crash stories spook people, they yank everything into cash or some ultra-safe account. And it feels responsible. It feels like the grown-up thing to do. But look at what you're actually doing to yourself. You're in your 50s or 60s, you don't have enough saved, and the one thing you desperately need is growth. You need your money working harder than you are. And the second you park it all in cash, you switch off the only engine that can still save you: compounding. Here's where the "I'm out of time" story falls apart. You might be 55 or 60, but you're not 95. Live into your 80s, and that money still has 20, even 30 years of work ahead of it. The first 10 to 15 of those are still your building years. You're still odding, still growing. That's a lot more runway than the panic wants you to believe. It's like refusing to plant a fruit tree because it won't grow fast enough now. Sure, the best time to plant it was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. Refuse to plant it and you've guaranteed exactly one outcome: no fruit, ever. Playing it too safe doesn't protect you. It quietly locks in the shortfall. So both ends of the dial are out. All in on the rocket can wipe you out. All in on cash can starve you out. The answer lives somewhere in the middle, and this is where the test gets genuinely interesting.
Because there's one fund on this dial that nobody ever brags about, and in the worst year the markets had recently, it did something the rocket simply couldn't. Watch. Section 5. What actually survives a bad year? Cast your mind back to 2022. Interest rates spiked and tech stocks got absolutely hammered. The S&P 500 fell about 18% that year. QQQ dropped a massive 33%, a full third of its value, gone in 12 months. Now look at SCHD, the dividend fund. During that exact same year, it fell just 3%. 3. There's an old saying in investing, when the tide goes out, you find out who's been swimming naked. In 2022, the tech rocket got caught completely exposed. SCHD kept its clothes on, and the whole time it just kept paying out real cash dividends into your account, whether the market was red or green. It currently yields a little over 3%. For a late saver, that matters way more than it looks on paper. When your fund only drops 3% while the world is ending, you sleep at night. It keeps you from doing the one thing that turns a temporary loss into a permanent disaster, panic selling at the very bottom. But let's be totally honest here. There is no free lunch. Go back to that 9-year scoreboard. SCHD made $255,000, while QQQ made $550,000. That peace of mind cost you massive growth. Over a long bull run, the lifeboat will always trail the rocket. So SCHD isn't the lone answer. It's a brilliant tool for stability and income, but it's too weak if raw growth is what you actually need to catch up. So what if you want to stay aggressive and chase real growth, but with a built-in instinct to step aside before a major crash hits? That's not a fantasy. That's the fund we skipped earlier. Because SPMO pulled off something in 2022 that genuinely caught me off guard when I saw the numbers. And for someone who's actually behind, I think it's the most important stretch of this whole video.
Section 6. SPMO, the aggressive option with a brain. SPMO is a momentum fund, and the idea behind it is beautifully simple. Instead of stubbornly holding the same 100 tech names no matter what's happening in the world, momentum does something almost human. It leans toward whatever's actually working right now and pulls away from whatever's falling apart. Remember 2022? QQQ dropped around 33%. That same year, SPMO fell only about 10%. Why? Because before the worst of the crash even hit, its strategy had already rotated out of the most overpriced tech and into stronger corners of the market. Energy, healthcare. It read the wave instead of fighting it. Picture two guys in the ocean when a big wave rolls in. The swimmer puts his head down, powers straight into it, and gets crushed. The surfer feels the water shift under his feet and rides up and over the top. Over the 9 years in our test, SPMO compounded at roughly 19% a year, rocket-class returns, but with shallower drops than pure tech. Sounds like the obvious winner, right? Slow down, because SPMO comes with 3 real catches, and you need all 3 before you touch it. 1. Momentum can turn on you fast. In 2023, the market flipped in a hurry, and over one stretch, SPMO trailed QQQ by around 37 percentage points. The same instinct that helps it dodge a crash can also make it miss the first leg of a sharp recovery. 2. It's concentrated. Its top 10 holdings can be roughly half the entire fund. When it's right, that's a huge edge. When it's wrong, there's nowhere to hide. 3, and this is the one that matters most for you, SPMO's strategy in this exact form has really only existed since around 2015. It's never been tested in a 2008, never lived through a 2000. We honestly don't know how it behaves in the kind of once-a-decade catastrophe that does the most damage to a late saver. How it held up in 2022 is encouraging, but 2022 was a bad storm, not a once-in-a-generation hurricane. SPMO isn't a magic shield. It's a smarter bet with its own risks bolted on. Now, I know some of you are doing the dangerous thing in your head right now. If aggressive is good and smart aggressive is even better, then maximum aggressive must be best. Let me just ride the hottest thing in the market. I need to show you where that road ends, because it ends at a cliff.
Section 7. The Gambler's Cliff. This is the temptation at the very edge of the dial. Semiconductor funds, chips, the engines of the whole AI boom, funds like SOXX and SMH. And the pitch is intoxicating. This is where the growth is. Forget boring index funds. Ride the wave that's actually moving. So let's be honest about what you'd really be signing up for. These funds swing about twice as hard as the overall market, day in and day out. And even in just the last few years, one bad stretch cut them by around 40%, already worse than QQQ. And the chip sector's worst historical crashes, far deeper still. Sit with that. We already saw what an 80% hole does. You need 400% just to climb out. Now imagine that, but inside one narrow slice of the market that can stay down for years when the chip cycle turns. And this is exactly where the most dangerous instinct of all kicks in, the "I'm behind so I'll bet bigger to catch up" instinct. There's a perfect comparison for it, and it isn't flattering. It's the gambler at the casino who's down for the night, so he keeps doubling his bets, convinced the big win is just one hand away. Here's the truth about that gambler. Betting bigger because you're behind doesn't improve your odds. It just gives you more chances to wipe yourself out completely. Desperation feels like aggression. It can even look like courage, but they are not the same thing. And the market can't tell the difference between a brave bet and a reckless one. It just pays out or it doesn't. For a 25-year-old, a wild swing on chips is a gamble they can recover from. For someone in their 50s or 60s with not much saved, a drop like that in a single sector isn't a setback, it's the end of the story. That's the cliff. Don't walk off it chasing a wave. So here's what every one of these numbers has been trying to tell us. The original idea, I have less time so I should take more risk, gets it backwards in the one way that actually counts. Less time doesn't mean you can afford more risk. It means you can afford to be wrong less often. That's the whole game right there. So the real question was never aggressive or safe. It's this. What's the biggest drop I can survive without panic selling and without running out of time to recover from it? For most late savers, that honest answer isn't 100% rocket. It's something closer to 60 or 70% stocks, built to grow but built to survive the one bad year that would otherwise end you. And notice what that unlocks. You don't have to pick one fund off this dial and pray. The smartest version of this is a blend. A broad, boring core, the S&P 500 doing the quiet, steady work. A growth tilt, the NASDAQ or a momentum fund adding real horsepower. And a stable, income-paying anchor, a dividend fund keeping the whole boat upright when the tide goes out. Aggressive enough to grow, diversified enough to survive. But the deepest truth in this entire video has almost nothing to do with which ticker you buy. It's this. Your strategy has to stay consistent no matter how desperate you feel. Low-cost, well-diversified ETFs aren't the exciting answer. They're just the only one that reliably works over time. And here's what nobody wants to say out loud. If you're truly behind, the real fix isn't a wilder bet. It's two boring, powerful levers. Save more, earn more. Even a side hustle that brings in real, consistent income can do more to rescue your retirement than any aggressive fund ever will. Think about that for a second. An extra $500 a month compounding for 15 years at a modest 7%. That's over $150,000. No leverage, no options, no sector bets. Just more money going in more consistently. That's the move. It isn't loud, it isn't a lottery ticket, but it's the one thing the math rewards every single time. So the next time that voice says, "You're out of time, swing harder," I want you to remember exactly what an 80% crash looks like on the account of a 57-year-old who went all in. Let's bring it home. Being behind does not hand you a superpower to survive a crash. If anything, it takes that power away. The urge to gamble your way back to even feels like bravery. It's actually the fastest road to zero I know of. Real courage when you're behind and the clock is ticking is almost boringly simple. Save aggressively, diversify, stay consistent. Give compounding the longest runway you've got left, because you have more of it than the panic wants you to think. And here's the thing the market will never admit. It doesn't owe you a comeback for starting late, but a calm, disciplined, diversified plan will quietly beat every desperate swing you could ever take. The tortoise jokes write themselves, but the tortoise is the one who actually retires. None of this is financial advice. It's just what the numbers show, laid out as honestly as I know how.
Your situation is your own, and your specific plan deserves a real financial advisor. But please, don't let "I'm behind" talk you into the one mistake you can't take back. If this changed how you think about catching up, I want to know where you stand. Drop it in the comments. Are you Team Rocket, Team Cruise Liner, or Team Lifeboat? QQQ, VOO, or SCHD? I actually read these, and your answers genuinely shape what I make next. Subscribe if you want the honest mouth instead of the hype. I'll see you in the next one.